Hello, everybody. This is the Adafruit CircuitPython Weekly for, oh, and I forgot the date, November 20th, 2017. This is our chance to sync with the community at large about CircuitPython goings on. Um, what we do is we start off by a quick rundown of the status of CircuitPython, and then we'll go into Hug Reports, which is a chance for everybody to say thank you to someone else in the community for some work they've done. And the way that we do that is I just go down the list of people in our voice channel here. And you can either type in chat or unmute and let me know what your hug report is. And then once we do all the hug reports, we'll circle back and we'll do status updates. Basically what you're working on, what you did the last week, what you're doing the next week. This is kind of a software process sort of thing that happens, project management sort of thing. And then at the end, what we'll do is we'll cover any odds and ends that came up. And this is kind of like the long form detailed discussions that we may need to have. Dan Halbert and I and Tony DiColo work full time for Adafruit on CircuitPython. And so this is also a chance for us to sync as well. Okay, so let's see. State of CircuitPython, just real quick numbers. 6 pull requests merged, 4 different committers, which is awesome. 2 closed issues by 1 person and 7 opened by 6 different people. Those numbers are interesting just to see how many people we have involved kind of on a weekly basis. And as far as issues go, we're opening more issues than we're closing, which is not great, but a lot of them are small and we should be able to knock those out later on. I again looked at the download stats just briefly. Circuit Playground Express definitely pulled a bit ahead of everything else, and we're over 1,000 total downloads on 2.1. So that is state of CircuitPython, and Hug Reports is now. I'm gonna put time codes in hopefully. So Hug Reports is a chance for you to say congrats or thank you to somebody. It's a thing that Adafruit does in person in New York City, and I wanted to bring that to our digital meetup here for CircuitPython as well. So first and foremost, I want to shout out to Kurt, who's not actually in the chat, but he's been a super helpful person. Previously, he had his first kid, and so congrats to Kurt for that. Look forward to him finding some time away from his kid to help us, but I'm glad that he's taking the time to enjoy his kid as well. Also, thanks to Mr. McWethy for bugging me about getting permission to release a bunch of CircuitPython libraries. He did the fix for read into and followed up and got those all released, which is awesome. Also, thanks to Factory for helping with the spy header questions in Discord chat over the week. Sedacious was also super helpful for Eric Wirtz. Shout out to Lady Ada for her commit that adds support for the Itsy Bitsy board, which is an upcoming board somewhere between the Trinket and the Feather. I just got mine today. But she actually got CircuitPython building herself and did all of the board support stuff there. So expect to see her create more board definitions going forwards. And then lastly, shout out to Katney for her first core CircuitPython commit. I was like looking last night at pull requests and there's one outstanding. I was like, oh, I need to do this. And so I pulled it. That's why it's 6 merged rather than 5 merged. So congrats, Katney, on that. And thank you for following up with the doc updates. So that's my hug reports for this week. Tony, do you have anything?
Hey, let's see. Is this audio working?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Nothing this week.
All right. A. Meyer, do you have any hug reports? And welcome to the CircuitPython Weekly. No. Carter?
Nothing specific, so just a group hug for this week.
Group hug. C. Grover, do you have any hug reports?
Oh, I got a couple. But, I'm new to this forum, so I have to say a couple things. First of all, I've been waiting for the Trinket M0 to come through. So a shout out to Lady 80 for getting that thing done. It's changed a couple of projects that I've been working on, and it's fantastic. I just need Express now because I'm getting kind of verbose. Secondly, I'd like to thank Katney for breaking the dam for me on a couple of issues that I had. I'm pretty new to CircuitPython, and she's been extremely helpful. And in some ways, that she doesn't realize that she's helping because I kind of watch the conversation and pick up some hints. So thanks to her, did a great job helping me break through a timing issue that I had.
Awesome.
And then Tony did some great work that he probably has forgotten about by now, but with the motor control stuff, he wrote some drivers that I needed to emulate on the Trinket. So I built some helpers that were modeled after the drivers that he wrote that were part of the library, and I'm pretty happy with the outcome. And then big thanks to the team for making this thing work as smoothly as it does. I've been able to load CircuitPython on a number of different boards, and it just works flawlessly. So thanks to all of you for the work that you've been doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm glad you got to make this meeting, and hope to hear more from you.
Well, you probably won't hear a lot from me because I'm gonna try to learn a little bit more than I don't really have a lot to participate because I'm just applying it. But I want to stick around and see how you guys operate, and I do pick up stuff from the things that you pass back and forth. So thanks.
Yeah, I mean, that's no problem. And having people actually use it is super valuable to us too. Don't discount yourself.
Oh yeah, well I'll give you a quick update on that part. Just that I went from about 6.5, 7 pages of Arduino IDE code on one project down to 2.5 pages of CircuitPython.
Nice.
Easier to understand, easy to support in the field. It's big benefits. So thanks.
Great. And one last teaser: there is a Trinket M0 Express coming.
Yeah, I saw the Desk of Lady Ada, and my mouth is wet. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, the Itsy Bitsy is going to be epic too. Yeah, so lots of good stuff coming. Dan?
Whoops. Okay. So that's my cog reports. I guess Scott has been very helpful in me getting the bus IO stuff working, and we commiserate a lot about the problems we have with ASF4. And but it's helpful to have somebody to complain to, and also say, is this really how it works, and that kind of stuff. And also, Limor has been doing a bunch of. I've had some side conversations with her about a bunch of stuff, trying to get the SPI pins worked out correctly. Her and Dean.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, more and more people are in the forums complaining about issues with CircuitPython, and that's actually really great because that's where new bugs and fixes come from. So those people are relatively anonymous or one-off, but it's great to have users.
Oh yeah, for sure.
One of the things I really like about this job. So,
yeah, and we can actually talk directly to the users as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, that's me.
Thanks, Dan. Jerry?
It's a quick one to Dean and Dan both for the work they've done on the bootloaders this last week, fixing up a bunch of problems, especially the issues that I was having with switching back and forth to Arduino are now all fixed.
Mm-hmm.
That's working great.
Oh, great.
And yeah, and following up on what C. Grover said too, a hug report to the people who ask questions on these forums, because it actually gives me great ideas of things to try and play with, and I've had a lot of fun. I'll talk to you later when status reports about some of the things that come back because someone asked a question about it. So it's great stuff.
Awesome. For those of you who don't know, Dean is a software engineer at Adafruit HQ. He did a bunch of the internal apps that do like inventory management and stuff, and he just kind of in the last 6 months switched over to doing embedded work with Limor, so they sit right next to each other, and he did all of the SAMD51 support, which we call the M4 for Arduino. So he's a rock star. He gets tons done. He also did Seesaw, so you saw Seesaw stuff go out. Dean did that as well, so he's really cool. So that's who Dean is. Katney stepped away, so we'll skip her. When she's back, she can let us know. And yep, MicroRobot, go ahead.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
Big hug report to everybody, but especially Dan. He's been very helpful and responsive to my questions.
Perfect.
And I'm just having a ball here. Had a little trouble with the Feather Express on Windows 7, and I guess partly it's my own fault, and just being new to the experience.
Yeah, Windows
But
7
it does
is
work.
a little tricky.
Yeah, it does work great. I just plugged it right into Windows 10 and bang, didn't have to do anything.
Awesome. That's what we want.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so that's Hug Reports, and we'll get back to Kattni when she's back. So status updates. I'll start, and let me take the time code, 1046. First off, I got fed up with Rosie on the Raspberry Pi because the Raspberry Pi kept crashing on me, freezing up, and that's no good. Rosie is our continuous integration testing thing that I made. Basically, it downloads every build of CircuitPython, loads it on a bunch of boards, Feathers, Metros, Trinket, Gemma, all that stuff, and then runs a bunch of tests on the boards as well to make sure that it all works. So I got fed up with the Raspberry Pi. I moved it over to an Intel NUC, which is a small, regular Intel computer. So that's going. And so what you should see is now on all the commits to CircuitPython, you should see you should get a green check if all is well, and you should be able to click it and get 2 reports that both Travis passed and Rosie passed. And that means it actually ran on a bunch of boards, which should be super cool. So I did that last week. Hopefully I don't have to do too much of that this week. It looks like it's going, which is good. And then my focus at the end of last week and going into this week is more kind of library infrastructure work. So I want to get all of our library repos set up so that it auto builds all of the release artifacts, meaning that right now Tony's been really good about doing new releases to get them updated to 2x, but want to move to a world where every library has a number of different zip files for each different version of CircuitPython, so that we can just support multiple versions in the same way that we do the bundle. So the bundle, you say like, oh, you have 3x, you download the 3x bundle. If you have 2x, you download the 2x bundle. So I'm actually reworking kind of the build Python scripts for libraries so that we'll have the same code building the bundle as we do basically all of the other libraries. So the libraries will turn into basically mini bundles with one library. And that should make it all super consistent, and I'll make all of those repos build on Travis as well. So whenever you want to release something new, you just will commit it, and then you tag the commit, and then Travis will auto build all of the things that you need to actually release. And then I'm also I made an AdaBot account, which I think I mentioned on Show and Tell last week. But the AdaBot GitHub account will be used to automatically update the libraries in the bundle itself, and then automatically do new bundle releases. So that'll be super nice. So once a day, it will check to make sure that all of the latest released libraries are in the bundle, and then it'll release the bundle. So that's where I'm going, and hopefully by the end of the week, early next week, that'll all be going. So Tony?
Hey, let's see. Is this working?
Yep, I can hear you.
Cool. Yeah, let's see. So last week, did a bunch of updates to some of the guides that we already had some libraries for. So the TSL 2561, the BNO 055, the ADS 111.5 and 10.15, basically analog digital converters. So yeah, a bunch of updates. There's actually another one. Oh, the character LCDs displays. So yeah, basically all those guides are updated to have CircuitPython instructions in there.
Awesome.
For that work. There's a few more left to do some updates on this week. So that's what I'm cranking on.
Right. Keep up the good work. That's going to pay off. All right, Carter?
Yeah, couple of things. Most of this is just kind of a bookkeeping. The ADS 1x15 library I did, it's kind of probably a bit of a screw up on my part that I didn't put the double underscore init in the folder, so it didn't get built. And there's Mr. McWethy has put in issues and a PR that kind of fix all of this, and they're just kind of sitting there. So I'm not sure if someone just needs to get kicked to look at that and bring it in.
Yeah, you can look at it.
Well, it looks fine to me. It's like, should I?
Can you approve it?
I guess I can. Yeah, I'll go take a look at that and just PR it directly into the Adafruit repo.
Yeah, you'll be able to merge it. You may not have permissions, but just bug me. I just made I made a new team for CircuitPython librarians, which is people who will have access rights to merge pull requests on all the libraries and also do new releases.
Okay, I'll give that a try. I just wasn't sure why it stalled, because I saw him post the issue and I was going to go fix it myself, and then I saw that, like, oh, he'd also fixed it for me essentially.
Right.
But then no one had merged the PR, so I'll do that, and that should take care of it. And then I'm also started working on the one-wire stuff, and I do have some discussion on that, but I'll defer that till part 3 of all this, the general open discussion.
Cool. I will make a note of it.
Yep. And that's all I got.
Cool. All right, C. Grover, do you have updates on your projects?
No, nothing to share other than, my end user products and things that I'm working on.
Right, you're doing the string racer thing, right?
Doing string racer, corrosion detector, and I've got some sound effects and a music synthesizer that I'm working on. And I'm hoping to convert most of those to CircuitPython at some point.
Oh, that'll be awesome. Well, you know where to find us if you have questions.
That's why I stuck my foot in here today.
Perfect. Well, you're always welcome. All right, Dan.
Okay, so last week I got synchronous. I got SPI working on CircuitPython 3.0, just the synchronous version, not the DMA version. But I tested it with BMP 280, and it works fine, and that does a lot of exercising of the SPI bus, so that's good. And it worked on the MB21, and then I had to get it working on the 51, which mostly involved figuring out the pin assignments were confused, but that's all straight. Once I got them fixed, it worked first time.
Nice.
So this week I'm working on getting the DMA SPI to work. So I'm pulling in some new code from ASF4, which I may or may not need, but I'll bring the ASF4 repo up to date to pull in some of that library code. And the other thing that I did was fix up the UF2 bootloader so that now it puts version numbers on all the files that it writes, which makes it a lot clearer about which UF2 bootloader you're actually using. So that's all set, and everybody here who's using an M4 board should update the bootloader with the latest version from that if they can build it. If not, I can make a release, and they can just download.
Yeah, why don't we post a UF2 in the chat or something later?
Yeah, I did like about 5 days ago, and so I'll do that. I'll do both of those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was also thinking I should update the bootloaders on all the Rosie boards as well, because I haven't actually tested that bootloader with the M0.
Yeah, that shouldn't be different, but I was trying to make sure that we still were testing Rosie with what is shipping. So and we could talk a little more about whether she wants to update the shipping ones or not. Yeah,
right, that's true.
Yeah. So and I think that's it for now. Yeah. Okay.
All right, Jerry.
It's a question for Dan. Dan, the erasers that you made, are they somewhere, if we want to point somebody to them? I know you posted them to the forum. I think I got them from there, but is there a location where they're kept?
They're in the Learn guide. Yeah, I'll post a link to here.
Okay,
and I'm going to put them, now that the M4 one bootloader works, I will I'll put them in like the M0 FAQ or something also.
Okay,
But
great,
there,
thanks.
I will put them in the right place.
Yeah, I've just been playing with lots of different things this week. I'm trying to remember which ones were from this week, but the one of the more fun things I found was a question came up on the forum about the time of flight sensor, the VLX 53 LOX. And a long time ago, I did some playing around with Radomir about trying to get it working under both MicroPython and CircuitPython.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty unsatisfying because it's such a huge piece of code to get it working. And he did a lot of work on porting the full configuration over to MicroPython, and it sort of worked, but it was so big it was pretty useless because it took up so much memory.
Right.
But there's a piece of code that's been floating around for a long time too, where somebody named Pope Hunter has made a much simpler configuration. So, and I had gotten it working, but I never thought much about it, and I never really understood why it worked because it does so little.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided to try it again, and it works great. And I've been actually playing with it a lot. And what really has been great is I have it now running on a Trinket M0.
Oh, nice.
And I have it so that it changes the color of the dot star depending on how far away you are, and it works great. So like I said, I still don't know why. So I'm afraid to go too far with it because I don't understand how it can work because it does so little configuration of the part, but it's fun.
Huh.
So if anybody wants any information about it, I'll be happy to share it. I posted it to a forum thing and be interested in any feedback.
Yeah, I wonder if we should actually make a driver.
Yeah, I thought about it, and that may be a good project for me to try and make a driver out of it. But I said I wish I understood it better before pushing it too hard, but or what its limitations are.
Yeah, but you also test it.
Yeah, so that'd be a good practice thing for me to work on.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great.
I think the full driver doing the full setup is just too large.
Yeah, I think you could just do like a light version or something.
Okay, I'll give that a shot.
Cool.
And then otherwise, I was playing with again the M4 is so nice to have the memory. Some projects that I'd done, I'd never been able to use an OLED display on an M0 board really effectively because it took up all the memory. By the time you got the display running, you couldn't do anything with it.
Right.
But the M4 has been great. I've had some programs running a couple of I2C sensors, some temperature. In fact, comparing two temperature sensors and printing out the two values on the OLED. It's been great and had it running for several days uninterruptedly, no problem, under 3.0 and working great.
Perfect. That's great.
And then,
that's great to hear.
Yeah. The other thing I discovered too, and I've forgotten about this, the community bundle that's out there and the work that Maybe has done on the soundboard was really great. I plugged a soundboard into my Metro M0 and have it up and running too. So lots of cool stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean to take a better look at that community bundle for sure.
So that's it. Just lots of playing.
Cool, thank you. Katney, are you around?
I am for at least a minute.
All right. Do you want to do hug reports first?
Yeah, hug reports for Scott and Dan for just rocking out, helping out. And of course, hug report to Kurt. I knew what was going on, but I couldn't tell anybody until he did. And he's been checking in with me to get updates throughout the last couple weeks. So he's not too far behind, even though he hasn't been able to be around. But he's obviously really excited about what's going on at home and really excited to get back into everything we're doing. So those are my hug reports. As for where I'm at, we were working on trying to get the mic on the Circuit Playground Express to work and found some interesting differences between different revisions of the board. And I ordered, I have more of them now, but I got two that were exactly the same as the other one that I had that was having issues. And in terms of software, we found that it seems like the mic is initializing much later than the one on the original board I have. And so it's with the tiny buffer for the sound meter code, it fails because it's not actually initialized by the time the buffer is done. So I managed to write code that made it work. However, I'm still getting length mismatch issues, which I know is written into the code. It's actually in PDMin. and I don't really know how to deal with that. And it looks like it's by design, but I'm not really sure why. And in the end, I'm not entirely sure we can put it in the API in the state that it's in.
Yeah.
Because the buffer we're using for it is big. It's like almost 2,000 bytes, and then taking a slice off the end of it is like the closest I can get to not. And that's a big buffer. That's wasting a lot of space.
Right.
So until I did post an issue to PDMN talking about how one way to change it would be to have the clock constantly running and then only record data when you need it. It's not something I'm capable of doing, but it is in there, and I think we're probably just going to have to sit on this until something like that is resolved.
Right.
I don't think it's ready for the API.
Okay.
I did want to put shake detection into the API, so I started looking into that. I'm gonna probably have that done pretty quickly. I utilizing some code that Carter wrote. I'm gonna see like whether or not there's anything to improve on that or not, and then probably include that in the API.
Sweet.
And other than that, I'm still hesitating to get into IR because that's definitely outside my wheelhouse. But I know that Blitz City DIY, I believe, has done some stuff with IR and this and the and CircuitPython. So I'm going to take a look at that and see whether there's anything applicable, and see whether we can get maybe get that started.
Yeah, Blitz City made a really good video on it.
Yeah, no, I did watch through that. I want to go back now and actually look at the code they posted to get a better idea of what's going on. And other than that, just keeping up with some documentation changes, as you pointed out, and still working on the welcome to the community guide, trying to get that sorted out. And that's where I'm at.
Sweet. Thank you.
Katney, that shake detect code you mentioned, is that from that D6 dice?
It is.
Okay, bug me later, because it could probably be done better.
I talked with a friend of mine about it, who actually said that's exactly how he would have done it, and only made one simple suggestion. But I'll definitely ping you later and see if you've got more for me.
Right. Yeah. Do that.
Excellent. Thanks.
Sweet. MicroWattBot, how are things with you?
Well, I need to give up some of my free time activities on Facebook games.
Yeah.
So I can spend more time climbing the learning curve on Python.
Yeah.
And that's on me, so I'll just have to do that.
Yep. What are you interested in learning on the CircuitPython side?
Well, I have a pretty solid base of electronics, theory and knowledge.
Yep.
Just the what was it? The circuit. There's a big demo thing. Circuit 01 for the M4.
For the M4?
On my other computer. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of samples. It's like the Arduino sample,
right,
sample programs. So I'm going to work through that and read more of these Python books and videos and things that were pointed out to me. Tony had a favorite author, and I do have access to those materials, so I'll be going through that to climb the learning curve on Python.
Great. Well, you know where to find us if you have questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Sedacious, are you mic'd up? Or are you snooping? The bot got you. Let me look. I can pull it up. It didn't like the WTF. Hug report to Scott and Dan for helping me with my PWM code, TLDR WTF ASF4. Status, trying to track down a PWM frequency and delay millisecond length issue. Wondering if there is something more useful CircuitPython wise that I could be doing. I have a limited supply of wings to test. And it cut off the rest. Let me see if post your status again there, Sedacious. But I'm happy to work on simple CP code, drivers, documentation, bean counting. Yeah, we don't have a bean counting issue yet, do we? I should probably just look at outstanding issues. Waiting for Mark 2 of the Metro Wing from Osh Park. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, if you see anything you want to pick up, if you see hardware that you're interested in playing with, just let me know. All right. That is all for status updates. Now we just kind of open it up for any discussion that we need to have. So I think, Carter, do you want to talk about the one-wire stuff? Carter is typing. I think Carter had to refresh, so yeah, Mike is not working anymore.
I just want to say one thing, that I tried the Mu editor and it's really
check.
Yeah,
nice.
We can hear you, Carter. Just hold on a sec.
There we go.
Will do.
I just would recommend that if you like an easy way to edit without worrying about write delays, use the Mu editor, because it was working wonderfully for me.
Dan, I had trouble getting it from the site that was posted in the blog. Maybe this is a different one. I mean, I got it for different sites, but yeah, I just had trouble installing it. The only one I found that worked really simply was when you downloaded it from apt-get on a Raspberry Pi, it gets the latest version or close. But
I used it said use pip install or pip3 install.
That worked for you, okay?
I corrected that.
Okay.
The blog post originally said it was pip install mu, which it wasn't. It's pip install mu -editor. And so
I'll give it a try.
When I took a glance at the blog post, I was like, that's not right, and I confirmed it and then fixed it. So yeah, that might have been what it was.
Is this something we can be recommending on the forums?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is our kind of our bet for, like, when somebody's like, what editor should I use, this is going to be our answer.
Okay, because people obviously have run into write issues, and I, in typing a lengthy response, started to recommend it and then realized I wasn't sure that was appropriate or not, so I wanted to ask about that.
Yeah, I recommended it, but I haven't gotten any feedback of it worked for me or something like that. And for the average person, it's not so easy. I mean, I might talk to Nick about maybe building a Pi installer version, which is a Windows packaging up of the Python or something like that.
Yeah, so Lamore was mentioning doing appver for Windows. So yeah, it's recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd love to know if anyone's using it on Mac. On El Capitan with Homebrew Python 3.6, I'm running into a lot of issues with it where you can't actually change to the Adafruit board mode, like the buttons don't appear. And I haven't heard anything from Nick, unfortunately, but if anyone runs into that issue, I don't know, maybe we can both ping Nick and see if he can get a little more traction on it, because unfortunately I can't use the editor because the buttons aren't there.
Yeah, I should try that, Tony. It just fired up for me, but I didn't have a board plugged in.
Well, so click the mode button in the lower right-hand corner, and then just see if there's an OK and a cancel button on there, because you need to be able to press OK after you select the Adafruit board.
Mu debug log? Oh, when I click. Yeah, I can see OK and cancel. If I click,
I don't get them for some reason, and I think it's a cute
Yeah.
So I'm using Homebrew, and I'm using Homebrew with Python 3.6, which is, I don't think that's standard, but so I don't know, maybe I need to go back and double check what it did, but there's something weird going on with the Qt library. I saw it install a wheel like version 5.8, so maybe it's a different version than what Nick was using, but yeah, it's fun. So anyways, just FYI, try it out on Mac, and if anyone runs into no buttons, I'm kind of curious, maybe ping me so we can see what's in common with our setup.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, in general, like getting testing like Tony's suggesting out of the way would be really nice for this, because we do want to make it super solid. We've talked about having it auto update CircuitPython for people and also having it auto update libraries. So that's kind of why I'm doing library work right now, is we want to get to the point where libraries actually have a version in the file and we can automate updating it through Mu.
I ask a dumb question. Okay, if you install it with pip3, you pip3 install a Mu editor, then how do you start it?
Mu in the command line.
So it depends how your Python stuff is set up, unfortunately. And basically the way pip works is it's going to install it in whatever Python that pip is associated with. So if you're not in a virtual environment, then it's going to use your global Python. But if you have multiple versions of Python, like you're on a Mac with Homebrew, it's going to depend on which version, because like you can install Python 2, 3, multiple versions with Homebrew. So it kind of depends on which last version you installed and which one took over the pip kind of bin that's in your path. But anyways, so in theory, it should just be running Mu that should run it, but it might be complicated if you have multiple.
I'm finding on the Linux box, when I did that, I installed it, and then it complains about trying to load PyQt5.
Yeah.
So
you're probably running into an issue where it was installed and it probably installed all the dependencies on a different version of Python. And then when you're trying to run it, it's using a different version of Python that doesn't have all the Qt dependencies installed. So what you might be able to do is run it. If you can figure out which version of Python it was installed under, like either Python 3 or 2, and you can run like pip-freeze or pip-freeze will list all of the installed libraries, and you can see like which version of Python has PyQt installed. Then explicitly run, like I have a feeling it's probably installed under like Python 3 and maybe it's running Python 2 or something. Explicitly run Python 2 and then use the -m option and give it a path, basically the name of the pip package, which or the Mu package, which we'll have to look it up. It's probably mu.enter or something like that. Basically, instead of using the console script that Mu installs as a part of the setup.py or the pip install, you're basically just invoking manually the source code for Mu. It's a little bit complicated, but it's annoying because like when you have multiple Pythons, sometimes they get confused and dependencies get installed into one. Whereas when you run Python, it's going to use from your path a different version for it.
Right.
So yeah, see if you can figure out which version of Python it was installed in, and then you could either try to run Mu using that version or just reinstall Mu using the version of Python that actually comes from your path or that it uses when you run it.
Okay, I'll experiment. Thank you. Sorry for the diversion.
Yeah, Python packaging is hard. They're still trying to figure it out. Okay, Carter, your mic still working?
Hopefully, maybe.
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah. It's just the kill the mic when I do a reconnect to hear someone else's audio.
Right. You can have one or the other, but not both.
Yeah. So I just did the PR for that ADC library, so hopefully that'll be good.
Oh, you merged it?
Yeah, that was easy peasy.
Sweet.
So basically the main thing is discussion, and we may want to even defer this to like and after this meeting get together with anyone who is interested in this with the one-wire stuff. So I've been working on trying to create a one-wire device, kind of refactoring some existing code, and you get an issue out that points to the current repo and kind of describes it. And in digging into that and kind of looking at what currently exists and kind of self-educating myself on one-wire, this is the first time I've ever really like looked under the hood at how it works, and it's pretty interesting. I think we may need to do some more foundational work on one-wire before moving forward on like a device.
Okay.
Like what's currently there is pretty minimal. Like you can write a 1 and you can write a 0, and that's kind of about it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure who has familiarity with one-wire and the protocol and all that and wants to kind of get in on this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the one that added the like lowest level, like 1-bit, 0-bit stuff.
That's my reading on it. There's kind of some stuff that's there's obviously going to be stuff that's device dependent, like is this a temperature sensor or a watt?
Right.
And that would be in a device level driver. But there's some stuff that seems to be totally universal to one wire, like sending out these various ROM codes and stuff like that could be at the lowest level.
Well, so go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, it might be interesting to look at the Linux kernel and just see, what do they do for one-wire drivers? Like, do they have a generic one-wire device that they throw into the system, and then do all the drivers, get written against that, or is it just free for all? Everyone builds everything themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think I've done a little bit of that and looking at some other APIs that have been out there, and they definitely are more full-featured than just write 1, write 0, and you're on your own after that.
Right. So the reason that I had it just do the write 1 and write 0 in the core was that was my impression of everything that was time critical. So
correct. I think it's all that matters in terms of time criticalness, but
yes.
So it doesn't. I mean, you can write this in C, you can write this in Python at this point, but I think there needs to be a more fleshed out lower level API available to build upon.
Okay, that's fine with me. Yeah, I would do it in Python, is I guess what I'm saying. Like, I'm not gonna argue against that. It's just I don't think it needs to be included in the lowest level stuff because it's not time critical.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like, and we can. Do you want to talk after this?
I can
about this.
I can, but
yeah, let's do that.
Why we can also just say like, are there any other topics that people want to discuss, or should we just call it and then we'll continue this discussion?
Sure. If anyone else wants to chime in on this, please do.
But also, is there anything else people want to talk about?
Specific to one wire?
No, I mean in general, like any other topics in the meeting we want to talk about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I'm done with my status or topics.
Right.
I'm
assuming because nobody's speaking up that there's nothing else. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna continue talking about one wire. If you're not if you're not interested in one wire, feel free to leave. I'm gonna leave the recording going because maybe there's somebody who's gonna listen to it later who wants to know about one wire.
Cool.
But as far as I know, there's no other topics, so we'll talk about one wire. If you're not interested, thank you for joining in. So continue, Carter.
Okay, so how much have you or anyone who's listening is interested in this looked into, the under the hood one wire stuff? And because I can kind of bring you up to speed on what I've been reading on it.
Yeah, why don't you summarize?
I bought a device and that's where I'm at.
So there's they call it ROM codes. So I think basically what I'm trying to get the nomenclature down on this. You seem to have like this common semantics they use, right? So there's the ROM codes and there's the function commands. So they kind of, a basic one wire transaction is kind of this reset, send a ROM code, and then do the device specific stuff, which they call a function command.
Okay.
And then those ROM commands that they call them, and I think it's ROM as in read-only memory.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure where that specific semantics comes from. But those are kind of like there's like a handful of those that exist. And every one-wire device should hear those. Like, for example, there's a search ROM, a read ROM, a match ROM, a skip ROM, an alarm search, and I think that's basically it.
Right.
And for example, like a search ROM is how you would start searching for what's on the bus, because it's a party line and you can attach multiple devices. Right. But it's not like I2C where it's like, oh, you have this, look in the data sheet and its default address is 0xFF.
Right.
every device on the planet has a unique 64-bit number associated with it.
Right.
And the lower 8 bits of that are like a family. So I guess every Dallas one-wire temperature sensor probably has the same lowest 8 bits that says, hey, I'm a temperature sensor.
Right.
And then the upper 8 bits are a CRC to use for checking it. So essentially, the only truly unique stuff is like 48 bytes of uniqueness.
Yep.
Of course, the CRC would be different also. But you would then, so you can't just buy the device, plug it in, read a learn guide that says, okay, the address is 0xFF,
right,
instantiate it and use. You have to do a device discovery.
Right.
And that's what the search ROM is all about. And you just march through one at a time, and you finally figure out the unique 64-bit number for everything that's out on the bus.
Right.
And then you're good to go. Then you kind of turn around and go, okay, now I'm going to do, like, for example, a read ROM or a match ROM on that 64-bit number and start getting some data back.
Right. And that's kind of your equivalent to your I2C address.
Correct. That 64-bit ROM code is equivalent to an I2C address.
Right.
To be clear, that doesn't change?
It doesn't change. No, it's laser etched in at the factory. Okay. It is in the metal. And I guess you can do 2 to the 64, and that's the planet's limit of one-wire devices. And then there's, in these ROM commands, you can either, I think the idea with like a match ROM is that's basically like addressing a specific device. But you can also do like an all call with the skip ROM. Kind of what I think it's. But the idea is these are all kind of basic driverish level kind of functions. They're not device specific.
Right.
So I think they should exist somewhere in, like a driver API.
Okay.
And like you said, the only timing critical thing is that at least there are, you do want to write bytes and not just bits, but I think you could just loop that on top of what you have.
Right.
And it would be okay. But the rest of this should be built up and made available. And then I think what a device would do then, it becomes a little more obvious what the context manager of a device would do. It would basically, it doesn't need to do the discovery anymore. It basically would just do a reset. Like when you create the device, you would pass in that 64-bit number.
Right.
So ahead of time, you've somehow done a scan, you figured this out, and now you are ready to create your device with your 64-bit number. You do it, it has it.
Right.
And then the setup, the context manager setup would be kind of a reset of the one-wire bus, which everything has to do, and possibly sending out one of these ROM commands.
Yep.
And then the teardown, I'm not sure there would be anything in the teardown.
Yeah, that'd be okay.
You just stop using the digital pin.
Right. Yeah, so I think that makes sense. So what you're saying is like we could have one library that's just like the one-wire protocol stuff, like the ROM codes and the scan, the search and stuff. And then on top of that, you'd build bus devices, one wire bus device class.
Correct.
One
so
wire
I
device
guess
class.
Exactly. So now we're getting to the meat of the question, which is where and how does that middle layer get written?
I would put it in a new repo. Just like any other library, I think.
Because looking at like SPI and I2C, I don't really think we have anything like that.
Well, it's built in, right?
It's built in. Everything is just built on what's in bus IO.
Right.
So one wire is going to be a little different, where you're going to have bus IO.one wire, and then we're going to build on top of that this thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
Is it kind of like the bus device where you've got just another layer on top of the low-level I2C and SPI calls? So like you can imagine a one-wire device library that's just a higher level. It's using the low-level like bit abstractions, but maybe gives you read byte, write byte, that type of stuff.
Well, kind of, but we're talking about like 3 layers,
Right.
where the device is the upper layer and the C is the lowest layer, and one wire is going to kind of require this middle layer,
Yeah.
unless you want to put it in the C code.
Bus device though, right? Where it's the same thing. The driver is coded against I2C bus device, which does all the locking and unlocking and handles like some of the transactions, quote unquote, for it. But then that's just a pure Python library that's calling into the bus IO, the low level I2C reads and writes and things like that for it. So similar kind of model for that potentially.
Yeah. So I think in terms of the one wire drivers that we write, like for a Dallas temperature sensor, like it would still be based on one wire device.
Right.
In the bus device library, but there would be an intermediate Python library between that and the native C code in CircuitPython called one wire or something.
Or Tony, are you saying that could essentially, that Python code could also be in the one wire device?
Probably. I mean, you could, but yeah, you probably keep it separate. So just like if you're using let's say like the MCP 9808 sensor, so that one, it's coded against the bus device module and the I2C device inside of there. So it's just an extra little wrapper that simplifies the logic for the driver, so it doesn't need to know how to lock and unlock everything for it. Like it knows like the bus device module remembers the address of the device and that type of stuff. So it just adds a little bit extra stuff to it. But same model where your driver talks to a Python library, which the bus device library, which then talks to the C functions that are actually doing the low level calls.
Yeah.
Right. And I think looking at it, that may be possible. If the low-level library offered the scan function, then it's possible we could do this with 2 layers where
it's fine having a third layer though. Like there's nothing wrong with having an intermediate protocol layer.
So what would we call this? You can have one wire. You have bus IO.OneWire, and then we'll have the one wire device.
You could have one wire bus.
One wire bus. One wire bus.
I mean,
so it goes one wire bus, one wire device.
Yeah, and if we need to rename the lowest level one wire of those like one wire bits or something, we could do that too to make it clearer.
What's the difference between? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the reason that the one wire that's built in is so small is like with that C layer in CircuitPython, I really want to keep it as minimal as possible because that reduces the code size. So I would hesitate to add anything into the C. If we have this Python layer that's like providing scan for you, we can always build it in later if we want to. There's no reason it needs to be in C.
But I totally agree that, yeah, the less that you put into the C, the better, because it seems like the C library is just giving you the basic low-level kind of communication calls, and everything can be built on top of that. And so then it's just a matter of how crazy you want to get with the Python code. And I mean, anyone could build any library on top of it with whatever interface they like. Right. The only thing that I would mention is I would probably keep scanning separate so that, like, if I'm just using a driver, I may never even need to know or care about how to scan. So it would be annoying if I have to pull in a third library that I'm never even going to use. Like if my driver depends on it for some reason, just maybe it has an import statement or whatever. So just one little random idea is, just maybe separate what do you need to use the device versus what's just goodness that you may or may not want optionally. And that optional stuff, maybe that's just a side, library or separate, like the one wire advanced library
or another module.
I agree. I think that could be done if that, for example, I put a scan in this middle layer.
Yeah.
And then the device layer will have kind of like this, like the I2C and the SPI do. You can have a parameter that says address equals Well, I guess we can't do a default.
Right.
So you're going to have to you're going to have to pass in an address when you create the device.
Right.
And it's kind of up to you if like, oh, I did this a week ago and I know the 64-bit number, here it is. I'll just pass it in and I'm done.
Yeah.
Or if you're just starting out, you'll need to use some kind of scan to figure it out. And that would be in that middle layer, the one-wire bus.
Right.
And we could just create some demos that say, okay, you need to figure out what your address is. And then once you've figured out your address, here's how you create the device and start using it.
Yeah, or you can also have helpers that say, like, I know there's only one device on it, so just say, like,
right, just
device
default to
0.
Okay, yeah, you reminded me now. That was my idea. So the address has a default of, say, none, not of something that's in a data sheet, because there is nothing. And then if you don't supply the address, the behavior is do a scan and just pick the first thing found.
Well, I wouldn't do that. I would, in that middle layer that has scan, you could add another helper that says, like, get the only device, or you could just have it do scan of 0. I wouldn't make the driver automatically assume otherwise. I would require it to be passed in, but you could use a helper to always come up with it.
I think the only way to find the one device out there is to do the scan, though.
Right, but I wouldn't have the driver take in none and then do it automatically. I would always require the person to pass it in, even if it's not. Okay. Even if it's not a literal, you could just say, like, one wire device paren. Actually, let me just type it in. Like one wire device parens bus.scan of 0. Like that. Like that would get you the first address.
Oh.
You don't always have to do it as a literal.
And don't make it like don't allow passing in none and that behavior is in one wire device. You have to do something explicitly, okay.
Right, because then it makes it obvious if you want to. I think because there's 64-bit numbers, you probably want to actually make an object for an address as well. Because we don't.
Yeah, it also, especially since that 64-bit kind of has a CRC and a family, it might be kind of nice to be able to have direct access to those.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, so I think having a separate class for the address would make it nice as well. Because then you can make it print nice and all that too.
I'll probably put that in with this one wire bus. So I'm going to create a repo.
Yep.
Let's call it one wire bus repo.
Sure.
And I'll start putting this stuff in there. And then one wire device be yet another repo.
Well, no, that would be in bus device.
Go ahead and put this all in one repo.
Yeah, that's another option. Like, you could move one wire device out of bus IO or out of bus device and do it in a different repo.
Oh, wait, yeah, I'm sorry, forgetting that it's in bus device. Never mind.
That's probably better, actually, because if you put one wire device in bus device, then you add a dependency between the two. Because then bus device would need to depend on one wire bus. If that makes sense.
Simply because one of the things in there relies on it, right?
Right. So I think it would be fine if in bus device we just add a link that says, are you looking for one wire? Because then you can just use the one wire bus library, and it would have address and device and bus as different classes.
Yeah, Dan, I think I did look at that as one of the examples and just posted a link to an example of an Arduino API.
Right. Okay.
Okay,
Well,
well, I guess I can just start stabbing at that. I'll just create and if it dead ends and this turns out to be the wrong way to do it, we just go on from there. But I'll create a new repo and start populating it with all this stuff.
okay. I
See
think
how
you're
it
going the
looks.
right direction.
And I'll just create that in a personal repo, and we'll just go from there.
And then you want to do the same pull request later? Or?
Well, we could do the kind of that trick we did with whatever that was, that sensor where, you created a seed and I just copied the code in, and we can get it into the Adafruit side with that trick.
Yeah. The most important thing, I think, is just making sure that we have pull requests so that we can comment on the code that's coming in. It doesn't really matter where that is happening as long as it's happening. All right. I think that is that. I know Tony had to ditch out because he has his meeting at noon.
Oh, yep. Okay.
Bravo Delta, do you have anything you want to chime in on? I know you came in super late, but
no, just listening in.
Okay, so we've done the hug reports. If you have any thank yous to say, and then also just a status report if you want to let us know what you're working on.
Well, thanks for helping me earlier today. I was had some questions with the storage class. I mean, I was testing things for it, so it was a good time to ask questions.
Yeah,
kind of wanting to contribute more, and not sure. I'm still trying to learn as much as I can about the CircuitPython. So
that's awesome. Well, I really appreciated that like 4 of you jumped in, and after I asked about that storage thing, y'all tested it for me. So that's really, really awesome. Thank you all for doing that. And yeah, Bravo Delta, you always know how to ask questions and get a hold of us. And we're always looking for more people to help test and write drivers and contribute to the core. So whatever is interesting to you, just let us know.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. I know it's a bit of a long meeting this week, but I think we covered lots of good stuff. Well, we usually tend to chat after I stop the recording anyway, for those of you who are listening in at a later date. We do this every Monday pretty much, except if there's a U.S. holiday, or as is the case, I was in an airplane at one point. So it's Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. It's on our Discord, which is adafru.it. So Adafruit with a dot before the IT /Discord will get you in there. We're in the CircuitPython channel all week if people have questions. And these get posted to YouTube as unlisted videos, and the links to those unlisted videos are pinned in the channel for CircuitPython if you ever want to go back and watch it later. So thank you all.
Thank you.